So one more video that we're going to go over a concept before we jump into writing our application. In this one, we're going to be going over LINQ. And just a quick introduction, we're not going to go in depth as to what LINQ is. I will have another course, separate course, that actually goes over what LINQ is and just explores all of the aspects of LINQ and what you can do with it, because it's extremely powerful and there's a lot to be said about it, and I cannot cover it just in one lecture, but I still want you to know what it is, and I want you to know the basics because we're going to use this in our application. So with that said, LINQ stands for Language Integrated Query, and it offers easy access to in-memory object, databases, XML documents, and much more. Now, once again, in this video, we're going to be only going over the in-memory object access aspect of it, and the rest of it we'll leave it for another time when I have the separate course for it. So there are two syntaxes for LINQ. There's lambda syntax and query syntax, and we are going to be going over both of those. So let me go ahead and show you an example. I will have class hobby. So this is a class, and then I will say, okay, so we have the class, and I'm going to say public hobby. So this is a constructor. I'm going to have two properties in it. I'm going to say public int ID, and then I'm going to have another one that says name. So public string name. And so that will do the properties, and then we're going to pass in these properties, so an ID and a string, that's the name. I'm going to say ID equals to ID and name equals to name. There you go. Then we're going to initialize an array of hobbies, and I'm going to say hobbies equals new, well actually we can use the shortcut, and I'm going to say new hobby and be one walking, and then grab that, then grab the whole thing. So let's actually grab the whole thing, copy that, and then another entry, another one. So 2 and 3. This one is going to be swimming, and this one is going to be bodybuilding. There you go. So then what we're going to do is we're going to use LINQ to access elements from this in-memory object, or in this case, it's an array. It could be an IEnumerable, could be a list, could be anything you want, any type of collection you want. So I'm going to say var hobby, and I'm going to use the lambda syntax first to access this array. So I'm going to say hobbies. Then I'm going to use the method called where. Please pay attention to this part. When I say where, you see, it'll have this, and it'll say using system LINQ. Now it actually imported LINQ, so now we're actually using LINQ. We're utilizing methods that are pre-written for us. So here I will use lambda expression, and then I will say where the name equals to walking. So there you go. Now, what did I do here? I basically use LINQ. Where is a method, and there are many other methods besides where that are pre-written for you, and you can use them. Inside of that, you have to use the lambda expression. The way a lambda expression goes is you have your alias. An alias is basically the element inside of the hobbies, and it represents an element inside of the hobbies, and you can name it anything you want. Usually you want to keep it a letter or a couple of letters that describe what the collection is. Usually it's just a letter. I usually put the first word, letter of the word, and if it's a lot longer, then I try to camel case it and use multiple letters here, but you try to keep it short. That's the bottom line. And then you have the sign here, right? So it's equals and then greater than. So you have this, and then you have another H, and this is basically the same H, but what you're saying here really is you're saying, okay, I want to grab an element from hobbies, right? and I want to grab the element that has the name equals to walking. All right, so you're saying in hobbies, I want to grab all the elements that satisfy this condition. That's the point. And once we run this, you'll see, if I run this, you'll see that, step through it, so hobby, right, it just says walking. Now here's the point though. This doesn't just return one thing. If you noticed, let me just run this really quickly once more, and if you hover over it, you'll see that it's actually a list. You see that? Hobby is a list. So it is not a single element. That's because imagine if you had, if you had things here, like so let's say numbers here, right? And you said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then you said I only want to grab the ones that are greater than 5. In this case, we can do the same thing. I mean, we can just say, hey, ID, where the ID is greater than 1. So ID is greater than 1, and then you'll see that this will actually need to be hobbies, all hobbies with ID greater than 1. Not the best variable name, but it'll do. It's very specific. So then if I go here, all hobbies with ID greater than 1, if you hover over it, you'll see it is a list because we have 2 of them. We have 2 swimming and we have the other one, which is 3 bodybuilding. And that's because our condition was looking at all the elements that would satisfy it. And in this case, these were the 2 that satisfied it. So it grabbed those 2 and put them back in this variable that we have declared. So that's one example. Let me actually revert the change and keep it to the one that we originally wrote, which was to say that the name equals to walking. Now let's actually go over the query syntax. I will say var another hobby equals from H in hobbies, where H equals, or H name equals walking, select H. So you will see actually that this second one will return the same thing. So let's compare them. This one returned 1 walking, great. Another hobby, 1 walking, great. Now the syntax here, let's go over that. First we're saying from H in hobbies. This first part is just saying what is the collection that I want to access and what is the alias, like what is the element, so I can use that alias everywhere else in the query, and that'll represent the element that is inside of the hobbies. Okay, so that's what this part is saying. It's saying, okay, tell me what collection you want to use and tell me the element alias that you want to use so that I can easily access it, right? So you don't have to write that again and again and again. You just say H and it knows that that represents the element within the hobbies. Okay, so then the second part says where, right? So the where clause, and the where says, okay, so this is the condition. So the condition will then say only grab the ones in the list that satisfy this condition, very similar to the one above. Then you say select H. Now select H says, okay, once you have grabbed all the elements that are based on this condition, what do you actually want to grab from those elements? In this case, we're grabbing the whole thing. So we're grabbing the whole thing. That is the hobby object. But we could actually say dot, and we could say name. What this would do is it'll only grab the names of the hobbies that satisfy this condition. So let me go ahead and run this. You'll see that this time it's not similar. So this guy grabbed the whole thing, right? It says 1 and walking because that satisfies this condition. And another hobby says just walking because once again, the condition was satisfied just like the one above, But in this case, we said we don't want the whole objects. We just want to select all the elements that satisfy this condition, but we want to get only the name from those objects, okay, from those elements rather. So now we have that. But how can we do it in our lambda syntax? Very simply. All we have to do, let me stop this. All we have to do is use the select method that's once again pre-written for us. We just do that. We use the alias, so we say h is the element. And we can do anything else. We don't have to say h. It's just that h, I want to keep it consistent. That's all. So the lambda expression, and then I say select only the name. That's all. It'll satisfy this condition. So I'm saying here, from the hobbies, grab all the elements that satisfy this condition. And then once you have a list of all the elements that satisfy that condition, from that, then make another list that only grabs the names of those elements. So essentially, we're doing the same thing as we're doing down below. And let me go run this. And you'll see hobby, walking, another hobby, walking. So that's it. Now, a few more things really. I want to go over a couple of other methods that we're going to be using in our application. One of them is skip. So I will say every hobby except first one. And I will say hobbies skip 1. See what that gives back. So every hobby, I want to camel case that. Every hobby except first one. There you go. Now let's see how that behaves. And if we go over this, you'll see only 2. So 2 swimming and 3 bodybuilding. That's because the first one has been skipped. So that's what skip method does. It skips the, the number of element. And you say in this case, I want to skip 1. So it's actually C once again. We try to pass in the argument. It says the number of elements to skip before returning the remaining elements. So if you said 2, it'll skip this one, and only give you the bodybuilding. So we can actually test that real quickly as well. And you'll see that it only gives you back bodybuilding. And in this case, only bodybuilding. There you go. The other thing that I want you to know is take. So I will say get, so swimming hobby equals hobbies dot skip the first one, right? So to skip the first one, we'll skip this guy and then continue on from here. But what we're trying to say is only take this guy. So we can then say take and then say 1. So this case, it'll say, okay, I'm going to skip this and I'm only going to take 1 because what take takes, so takes the number of elements to return. In this case, it's the count, right? So the count. So count how many times you want to go forward. In this case, only once. And we will see that it'll skip this guy, come here, take this, and then skip bodybuilding. So let's check this out real quickly. And you'll see that this one should be swimming. And that it is. There you go. This is basically the basics of LINQ. And once again, we will be having a course coming out that is specifically for LINQ, so you will see all the powers and beauty of LINQ and how you can utilize it for other things such as databases and XML documents and much more. But for now, that's it, and hope you have enjoyed learning about LINQ.